Hey, welcome to week 4 of the Mount Silver Draft League. Coach of the Colorado Cobalions. Coming off a tough loss to Big Show and dropping us to 1-2 last week. And this week, doesn't get any easier. We're going up against the Akron Alakazams. An adamant 1, 3-0, plus 15 differential. So, got to work cut out for us. Going to dive right into the team builder. You can see Akron's team here. It's a very good team. Very good. Groudon is really difficult to build around if you don't have good ways to kind of abuse Sun to some degree, or have a lot of things that resist ground. I actually do have some options for both. Didn't end up building around either of those per se, but Groudon poses a lot of challenges in and of itself. Manaphy is terrifying, has lots of setup options, but I was particularly worried about coming into this week. Necrozma is kind of the same thing. Great utility mod. Rotom Heat, all the Rotom forms are very good on a team. You can see I had a couple more transactions before I could get to the team builder for the week. He ended up dropping Whimsicott for Celebi. But Whimsicott is super obnoxious. Actually dictated some of my team building, so it has power even when you don't bring it necessarily. Gengar is really good against my team and really good in general. Just a great special attacker. A little bit frail, but fast and very threatening. Hydreigon, amazing coverage, a very good mon, good speed tier. Really everything you would want from like a Z Pokemon as well with all of its coverage. Cobalion has already swept one team this year. Has rocks, has a bunch of functionality, just is kind of like a really nice kind of like pivot in a lot of cases. I can switch into, the dark attacks that Gengar and Necrozma don't like, pick up a +1 boost. It does a lot of things for this team. It provides another rocker. It's the third out of 4 rockers on the team thus far. Then you have Aerodactyl Mega, one of the few Pokemon that outspeeds Zeraora, which it's frustrating from a team building perspective. Usually I get the advantage. Usually I can run Adamant or Modest on my Zeraora and not have to worry about being slower than anything. So in this particular case, it almost worked against him because I knew I couldn't outspeed, so I didn't bother. And then his last Pokemon, another one that would end up being dropped after this week, was Sylveon, who's a lot of damage output from the spec set. It works kind of similarly as Conk does for me without priority, just kind of like a wall breaker, but it also provides a lot of really good support with like wish passing, cleric support with heal bell. Does a lot of cool things for his team. So just jumping into the team, the thought process behind my team this week actually was playing around with the idea of a trick room team. If you look at his team, speed tier is pretty fast, so going down I think it's 90, 100, 79, 86. Whimsicott's really fast, but it's Prankster or Chlorophyll. It's like 108 or something, I don't know offhand. It's really fast, might even be faster than that. Gengar 110, Hydreigon 98, Cobalion 108, Aerodactyl we talked about being at 150, Sylveon's only 60, maybe 65. But the team is really fast, so I played around with going hard Trick Room for a bit. I didn't like the feel of it. It felt really clunky, and I don't really have the best means of kind of abusing Trick Room with only one setter. Only a couple mons that are decent in Trick Room. I had some nonsense like an Iron Ball, Fling, Crocodile, which I don't think was ever going to work, so I abandoned it for the most part. Instead, I built a team around Latias, essentially, just a Calm Mind, 3 attacks, Calm Mind, Recover Roost. I think I had Recover. There's very little reason to choose one over the other in this matchup, especially. Tried to build around that, and one of the things that I thought of to build around that is I needed to get rid of Gengar. I didn't want to risk Speed Ties, which are nasty. I didn't want to risk like Choice Scarf Gengar coming in and just doing a lot of damage. So I kind of built a team around, let's remove Gengar and whatever else Latias has trouble with, and then we can set up with Latias and win. So I've got a couple kind of like pseudo breaker sets, and then things to deal with Gengar and things to get up rocks, and things to kind of wall what he could throw at me. So first set here is Zeraora. Went with a special set, had a little bit better coverage overall. Some of his mons were a little bit weaker on the special side, so I figured I could get a little bit further. Discharge, Hidden Power Ice, Grass Knot, Calm Mind. So these 3 moves hit just about everything except Rotom Heat pretty well. I could have had fighting coverage, but I did not want to run Focus Blast. It didn't feel that good to me. Like, it hits Hydreigon, it hits a lot of his team at least neutrally, but I didn't want to miss the Focus Blast. Ended up having just Calm Mind, Grass Knot, Hidden Power Ice, Discharge. Just give me really good neutral coverage, also against Whimsicott and Hydreigon. Pretty much the only thing I can't hit for at least neutral was Rotom Heat. I went with the Shuka Berry, kind of almost like a pseudo lure set. Zera has a very annoying habit for my opponents, and whenever I'm doing calcs, that it will survive pretty much any single non-super effective hit. It just manages to, like, the 88, 75, 80 bulk is enough to get it done. So the Shuka Berry allows me to survive the super effective hit, which would be Ground. So in this case, Precipice Blades from Groudon, as long as it wasn't banded, but I think I didn't check the banded calc. Now thinking back on it, but I definitely survived just regular Precipice Blades. I survived Earthquakes from Aerodactyl, Mega, Earth Powers from whatever. Just basically guaranteed that I would be able to take 1 hit with Zeraora for sure. That's pretty much it for the set. This was just kind of something that I could pivot in once Rotom was removed, and then just kind of do some work on his team. You can see in the top right again the 6 that I thought he'd bring. I thought they had the best matchup against me, so that's kind of, you know, again, you prep for all the Pokemon. You want to make sure that you have answers for anything they can bring, but those 6 seem the most realistic to me. The next set we had this week was Crocodile, and this was kind of, you know, I don't know if you want to say heat or something like that. It was basically a dedicated lead, and this was what gave me the best chance to have a successful lead. Earthquake, Aqua Tail, Pursuit, Stealth Rock. I really wanted Rocks up. I wanted to chip away at his team. I wanted to force him to defog if it came down to that, because you'll see I don't have any removal on my side. So I either wanted us to both have rocks or neither of us to have rocks. So getting rocks up was really important. This set I went back and forth on. I considered a Choppleberry set to guarantee I'd get it up against Cobalion. It just didn't seem great. It felt like we could just exchange rocks, and I guess that'd be okay, but I didn't know what to do against Rotom because I felt like I just get burned, and that's the end of that. So I ended up going with a Waterium Z, Aqua Tail, Max Attack, and then I think that's enough speed for non-speed boosting Rotom. So, you know, like a Bold Rotom or something, or basically it could be 252 but not timid or speed boosting. Pursuit's there for Gengar. Again, we really want to remove Gengar for this team. And yeah, it's basically a dedicated lead. This should be able to get rocks up on everything barring Z Cobalion. That's pretty much it. Taunt Hydreigon, I suppose, also could prevent them. Anything faster than me with Taunt obviously prevents them. So like a lead Arrow with Taunt, but I'm probably just going to Z Aqua Tail into Arrow. So that's that set. Crobat, another set I kind of went back and forth on. I originally had a... before I put Waterium Z on Crocodile, I had considered Fly Z, I'd considered Poison Z even a little bit to just give me some answer to Sylveon, and give me a decent neutral hit against Rotom Heat. Ended up just going with 4 attacks, Expert Belt. It seemed to do a lot of work. The Expert Belt was necessary to pick up the KO on Gengar with Pursuit, as long as it was non-invested, so like a 252 set. Brave Bird, along with Infiltrator, basically stopped any sort of Whimsicott shenanigans, so I could avoid like Sub-Leech, Leech Seed, which is always really, really obnoxious on a Prankster Pokemon. U-Turn for momentum, Cross Poison, hit Sylveon. I really wanted the 4 move coverage, and I couldn't have Defog, which kind of made it imperative that I get rocks up. Latias was kind of the sweeping set. The particular investment here is 176 plus speed, so this is enough speed for, I think this was for Cobalion in particular. No, this was enough speed for Manaphy, so base 100. I don't outspeed Cobalion or Gengar, which is part of the reason that Gengar being removed was so important for me. Recover, Calm Mind, Ice Beam, Psychic. Psychic Ice Beam gives me neutral coverage against this team. Barring... I think it's just neutral coverage against this entire team. Yeah. So, neutral coverage, a little bit of defense investment to kind of help me tank some hits. Again, plan is to remove Gengar, so hopefully what's left will be physical attackers or Pokemon that aren't going to be dealing enough damage. Yeah, really basic set. Just wanted to remove what threatened it and then get it in and start doing damage. Magearna here is basically a standard Trick Room set. Shift Gear felt like it had problems that I didn't necessarily like. It felt difficult to set up. It still didn't outspeed some Scarfers, if I'm remembering correctly. I just didn't like it. So I ended up going with and the other thing is you have to invest in speed if you end up going for Shift Gear. So you lose out on what ended up being HP and special defense in this case. This particular set, Life Orb, Grass Knot, I think it's all but one roll, so 15 out of 16, killing max HP Groudon, which is really nice. The Life Orb is really helpful for that. Flare Cannon kills Manaphy after rocks. Focus Blast was there for coverage. Give me a way to hit certain Pokemon without having to lower my special attack, namely Hydreigon, Cobalion. Aerodactyl as well, and neutral coverage against Rotom Heat, which felt important. I really wanted to take that out if I could. And the last mon here is Suicune. This is a weird set. This is one I changed out like kind of the late Saturday, early Sunday. The battle was early Sunday. I had Ho-Oh here originally because I kind of liked some of the options. It was like a Choice Scarf Ho-Oh or something. I just to try and get burns off on Mega Aerodactyl and maybe even Groudon. And it felt clunky and it didn't really accomplish anything. And then I started thinking about Z Manaphy, specifically Z Rain Dance, and I didn't like Ho-Oh at all in that matchup. So this is basically a dedicated Manaphy wall. Scald, Roar, Toxic, Protect. Roar, if it's Z Rain Dance, we can get it out of there, have it lose its speed boost, and our entire team, not our entire team, but 3 out of our 6 mons can come in and outspeed it, and then deal serious damage to it. Toxic, if it's not Z Rain Dance, that gives me a way to kind of whittle it down into range of Crobat's attacks maybe. Protect, just standard, just to rack up toxic damage and get leftovers recovery, and then Scald just to punish switch-ins with potential burns if it got to that point. The investment here, Guarantee Survives, +3, Timid, Manaphy, Energy Ball, after Stealth Rock. So that's the HP and special defense, and then the remainder is just dumped in defense. I didn't need any speed. I can't outspeed Rotom. I could have speed crept it, I guess, but I didn't see a whole hell of a lot of value in that. I'd rather just have the defensive bulk. And that's the team. So again, trying to get Latias set up, and from there, just punch holes with Zera, Magearna, Suicune, and Emergency Wall, and then these two gets rocks up, and between the two of them, hopefully kill Gengar. Alright, well, see you guys in the battle. Alright, so into the battle. First thing at team preview I see is that we don't have Cobalion, which is a huge relief actually. So I opted for the Waterium Z on Crocodile over the turn that music down a little bit. That's a bit too much there with the pan flutes. So yeah, no Cobalion. We do see Aerodactyl though. And again, it's a relief to me because I don't have the Choppleberry on Crocodile anymore. So I feel like at this point, rocks are basically a given. There's no way I don't get them up short of like Taunt or something. And I guess a Hydreigon lead could be bothersome. But it doesn't lead well against a bunch of my team. So we go into the first turn. I go with my dedicated lead, and he goes with Rotom, and this is one of those things where it's really hard to pull a trigger on a move like turn 1. But I think personally, if like you tech for a specific thing and you're in position to use a certain thing, you should use the certain thing. Any switch out here, short of like a switch into Manaphy or something, I do a lot of damage with this attack. I guess Hydreigon takes it okay. And I'm assuming that I outspeed, and I'm also assuming that he's going to want to Will-O-Wisp me on rocks or something like that. So I just fire off the Z, and as long there's a lot of chance that I just pick up a KO here, was basically my thought process. I forgot nicknames. I hate myself for forgetting nicknames. So he survives and Will-O-Wisps. From here, I mean, I get a lot of information out of this turn, right? So I know that he's not faster than me. I also know that the only way that you survive that is heavy HP and defense investment. So I calc through it, and I check like 252 bold, and it's like an 88 to 103 roll. So got kind of a mid roll there, so you know that's fair. But it does make me feel that he's just max, which is information that I can use going forward. At this point, I consider a few options. So I could Aqua Tail again, but it doesn't feel great. I could Pursuit on a switch out, but again, low HP, doesn't seem like a good idea. I ended up just getting my Rocks Up. I needed Rocks Up. I want Rocks Up on both sides, and I don't have a way to remove them, so Rocks Up seems like the most consistent thing to do here. So I throw up Rocks, Rotom switches out into Hydreigon. So at this point, Hydreigon in against the Burnt Crocodile is, you know, that's not good for me. Hydreigon doesn't have an immense amount of like setup capability relative to a lot of other members on his team, but you don't want to just sit in front of it and let it do whatever it wants. So a switch here is pretty much guaranteed. Kind of thinking through things here. Crobat seemed like my safest switch, mostly because I didn't expect an electric attack here. I suppose an ice attack could have come out, but Crobat's got decent bulk, and I wanted to be able to switch into something to pivot off of whatever pivot my opponent might make or anything like that. So I'm going to Crobat, and Hydreigon reveals to be Substitute. So this turn's a little interesting because I'm actually Infiltrator, so there's no way I can break the Substitute. I just literally can't. I'd go through a couple calcs. Brave Bird and U-Turn are both doing a similar amount with the Expert Belt, kind of basically nullifying any sort of stab power considerations along with the super effective. U-Turn here, I think the roll was something like 58 min. I basically get the min roll on U-Turn, assuming no investment. I don't really have anything else to assume, so Adamant, if you want to jump in with your spread, feel free. It ends up being really important, the roll that I get, though. And we'll see why in a couple turns here. So 54, yeah. So I think the min roll is 53.6 if there's no investment for 252 plus Crobat. I bring in Suicune. If it starts setting up, I want to be able to roar it out. A little risky here. Suicune, again, is my check to Manaphy, so this taking damage isn't great for me. Switching Suicune. He goes for sub again. The sub again here. I guess if you assume I didn't run Infiltrator, you just end up behind a sub guaranteed, which is really, really nice. That's the only thought process behind it, really. It's kind of a 50-50 what I ended up running. I guess without any sort of like, I guess you do have Rock Slide from both Mega Aerodactyl and Groudon that could potentially flinch, and so Inner Focus could be nice in that regard. So yeah, I'd say it's a 50-50 basically, whether or not I'd run Inner Focus or Infiltrator. I ran Infiltrator because I didn't want to get memed by Whimsicott just sub-leech seeding my entire team to death. So at this point, he's at 22 HP, behind a sub. Throws off a Dragon Pulse. I think this is a good play. It weakens me, and you know, this now I'm in range of that +3 Manaphy Energy Ball if that happens to be a set. The only unfortunate thing for my opponent is that the Life Orb hit does take him down to within Rock's range, like perfectly within Rock's range. So that's why that U-turn roll was really, really important. I end up roaring just because any sort of setup here, a nasty plot, something like that, I didn't want to deal with it. So I roar, send him out. Groudon comes in, sun's up. I know Suicune takes any hit, and I have Toxic, and I'm min speed. So if this is sub, I don't have great ways of dealing with it. I basically have to kind of pivot around. So in this case, I guess I have Roar. So I know I survive any one hit. So I go for the Toxic here knowing that I have Roar. And if he substitutes, I can Roar him out. I take a lot of damage, but they take a little bit too. So I just go straight for the Toxic. Precipice Blades connects. I knew I survived Precipice Blades from Adamant 252. So I get the Toxic off, which is really nice. Just start chipping away on Groudon. Next turn, he brings in Rotom Heat, which ends up being a sack to Rocks as well. I switched in Crocodile. The reason I switched in Crocodile is I didn't feel super comfortable going anything else with Groudon in front of me. I suppose, again, you have things like Crobat, but, you know, then Rock Polish set becomes a huge issue. There's a lot of things that become a problem, and Crocodile getting an Intimidate off made it feel like setup was not as good of an option for my opponent, mostly because the toxic damage would be racking up. And Crocodile, if nothing else, would just be essentially a sack. But since I switched in Crocodile on the Rotom Heat sack, now I'm super worried about Manaphy coming in setting up, because Crocodile is dead weight. Intimidated or burned, it's just not going to be doing enough damage against any of his Pokemon right now. You know, save Gengar, I suppose, but I don't think he's switching a Gengar in on Crocodile under any circumstance. So this feels like a really bad position for me. He goes out to Manaphy, you know, kind of worst fears realized. At this point, I know I need to immediately switch into Zeraora. So Zeraora, the spread outspeeds Gengar, so base 110s. I know I can take a hit. I think we mentioned the team builder, the Zeraora, you know, it survives any neutral hit. We're in the sun, so I don't even have to worry about stab. It's kind of a weird anti-synergy between Groudon and Manaphy, is that, you know, Groudon sets up the sun, but then Manaphy is in the sun, and it doesn't like to be in the sun because it loses its stab, basically. So Zeraora comes in the Ice Beam. A freeze here would be horrible, obviously. I did want to switch in Latios to an Ice Beam. I didn't want to switch in anything that wasn't offensive because it could set up. So Zeraora was probably my best play here. I checked Manaphy. Manaphy doesn't get any ground coverage, so I wasn't worried about that. So I bring in Zeraora, and I'm pretty sure I just go for damage here. Yeah, sacks the Hydreigon. A Calm Mind there would have been interesting, but super risky, basically. So if I do Calm Mind, I still don't outspeed Mega Aerodactyl. So I don't know if it accomplished much. Hydreigon dying to Rocks was nice for me, but I outsped it and killed it regardless. So it was just a sack. He brings in Aerodactyl here. And at this point, I know I have the Shuka Berry. I know I survive any hit. I think a Stone Edge crit, or Stone Edge might actually just kill me. I don't remember exactly the roll, but I figured that he'd go for the safer Earthquake. Actually, it's really important. I should check that roll. Don't usually like to do this in the post game, but. So Stone Edge is a roll, 56 to 67, so it's like a 50% roll. So if he goes for Stone Edge, he's got better than 50% odds of taking me out when you factor in like the increased crit. Well, actually probably worse when you factor in increased crit and its accuracy. And with the Shuka Berry, I know I take Earthquake, so I'm really comfortable just firing off a Discharge here. Adamant ends up going for Rocks, which I think is a good play. Maybe, you know, thinking that I'm fearing the Earthquake and will want to switch out, and getting Rocks up for him means that we're kind of in a balanced board state, so any switches are, you know, kind of neutral to both of us. But I just go for the discharge. He brings in Groudon. Groudon's toxic. At this point, Zeraora is kind of done its job. Depending on this Groudon's investment, which I don't have any information on, this Grass Knot can do a lot of damage. Again, we can look up the damage calc on the Groudon really quick. So, you know, this is a weird set. Let's just do max HP. So max HP does 65.8 to 77.7. I don't really want to let him set up at all. So I just go for the Grass Knot here, just getting damage, making sure that it's essentially in range. It also prevents any sort of double on his part. He could double into Gengar, I suppose, but then it just takes rocks and damage, and I'm still faster. Grass Knot's really not going to do much to Manaphy either, but again, I outspeed. So I just fire off the Grass Knot, do 50%, so he's got some special defense investment, and Precipice Blades misses. So obviously, that's heavily in my favor. Groudon Precipice Blades hits, it kills me, right? At that point, yeah. You know, assuming max attack. Yeah, so I'm EV to survive it from full, but not from, you know, where I'm at. So that kills me for sure. And because it didn't hit, it pretty much, you know, ends the game there. At that point, there's not a lot my opponent can do, because I can just fire off the next Grass Knot, kill Groudon, and then I can just guarantee damage on the rest of his team sufficient to, you know, win with my remaining members. So that really sucks. So Grass Knot kills. It goes into Gengar, obviously, it's his best play. Here, again, I don't want to allow any sort of setup or anything. There's no need to go for a 6-0. I think Neon almost got punished by trying to go for a 6-0. Here, I'm like, no, I know I die to Gengar's attacks. I know Discharge doesn't kill Gengar, but I'm gonna make sure that I win the match, because it's more important than differential. You know, if you go like 6-3 with a -10 differential, versus 5-4 with a +20, 6-3 person's going to the playoffs. So here I just fire off an attack, keep Gengar in range of everything, make sure that it doesn't sub, doesn't do any sort of shenanigans, and on my attack, I crit. I mean, he gets Curse Body, which is interesting. So this is where I'm saying not a 6-0. The crit mattered. It killed it because it crit. It wouldn't have killed otherwise. It sucks because it you know, takes him out of getting a kill for sure. So helping out with differential. The interesting thing is that without the crit, I'm fairly sure he's still in range of HP Ice. I'd have to double check the calc. I mean, regardless, this crit didn't win the game. This crit along with the Cursed Body might have been one of the only ways that I actually could lose the game from this position. Just because it gives Manaphy a free switch in, free turn to set up, which is, you know, not at all what I want. So that sucks for Adamant. Also, in some ways, sucks for me because it puts me in a position where I essentially have to, you know, play around Manaphy in whatever set it ends up being. So really interesting crit. Mostly just sucked for Adamant for differential. Did potentially open the door for him to reverse sweep with Manaphy. So he brings in Manaphy. Obviously right here, I can't stay in. My best attack to hit him is HP Ice, and that is going to do approximately, well, I guess Grass Knot, I think it's like 40 base power or something nonsense like that is my best attack to hit him. But he just sets up in the face of that and just kind of laughs at me. So I have to switch out here to prevent setup. My only Pokemon that can actually take this on is Magearna. And the interesting thing here is that Magearna with max HP, because I was running a Trick Room set and not max speed, we can look at this calc as well. It actually tanks a +3 Tail Glow. Surf, which is the attack it ends up going for. So I end up surviving this, whether we're in Sun or not. But again, the kind of anti-synergy shows itself here. And in Sun, there's no way this will ever kill. A damage roll drops down really far. But even if we're outside of Sun, it still doesn't kill. So really all I need to do here is I need to hit a Fleur Cannon and I win. And this was always going to be the situation we ended up in. Because I was always going to switch in Magearna on this. It could attack me with like Surf, but 2 Surfs at neutral is obviously less than 1+3. So we were always going to end up here. Ends up getting the crit, which is funny. And I kill a Fleur Cannon. So I do want to kind of talk about the end game. Because I do think Adamant got unlucky for sure. I do think that the Precipice Blades, it affected the differential. I don't think it affected the end result. I think I still had enough resources to break through. It's impossible to kind of walk through all of the scenarios. I think suffice it to say that I had 2 Pokemon that could beat Manaphy on switch in after a sack or something like that. So Latias always outsped. So if it was +3, I could get damage off with Latias. Crobat also always outsped, so I could get damage off with Crobat. Magearna always survived a +3 attack, so I could get potential damage off that. There's obviously outs for him. I still think it's in my favor without the Precipice Blades miss. The Precipice Blades miss just kind of shut the door, which sucked because I think we were going to have a really, really, really good end game. It was going to be a lot of fun. It was going to be really close. I think Adamant was going to have to make some plays, and I was going to have to not misplay. And, you know, my history so far in this league has been misplaying. So it was a really good game to Adamant. I hate that it got taken away on hacks and stupid things like that, you know, should have never factored in. But we do come out with the 6-0, which puts us right back kind of in the thick of things, kind of right in the middle of the league at a 2-2 record and a +2 differential. Yeah, so it was very interesting prep this week. Went through a lot of variations. It's a tough team to build against. I think it got tougher with the moves that Adamant made, picking up Porygon 2 and Celebi, which are, you know, Celebi was a Pokemon I originally drafted. Got some help from Regenix this week. Looked over a team for me. Told me not to use the stupid Trick Room team, which was validation that, you know, I had come to that conclusion, and just wanted someone to tell me that I was right not to use this stupid Trick Room team. Yeah, that'll be it for this week. Hopefully I was kind of sick this week, so I didn't get much time to improve the quality of anything that I'm doing here. So hopefully a healthy week, and I'll be able to kind of tighten up some things. I still got, you know, I don't know. Like you can see that I originally built this with a different resolution, and now it's these bars shouldn't be here. That was a mistake. I opened Photoshop and I was just cruising along, and my resolution was wrong for whatever reason. God damn it. So hopefully I'll get that fixed. Maybe I'll get some nice video editing done. To me, this is also a way for me to kind of practice some video editing, practice making some videos, that type of thing. So if you guys have comments on, you know, any of my play, feel free to leave it. I really appreciate constructive feedback on anything I do. You know, trying to get better. So feedback is always welcome. And I'm trying to get better at, you know, creating content too. So criticism is welcome, because it helps. That's it for this week. I'll see you guys around.